Welcome to In the Loop, a New England Temperature Solutions podcast. In today's episode, we're taking a break from the shop talk to hear a story of hope and perseverance from our long-standing business partner and friend, Joe Pinsonneault. Without further ado, here's Dom and Joe helping you get in the loop.
Hi, everybody. This morning, we have our friend Joe Pinsonneault, who is here with us. Joe did a podcast with us a couple of months ago on vacuum furnaces. Today, we're not going to talk about vacuum furnaces. We're going to talk about something a little different. When Joe was here last time, he made a comment when he was walking out pertaining to his medical condition here that he chose life over death. He chose to live rather than waste his life away. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool to talk about that? I thought that was just an amazing attitude and potentially an amazing story, which I think it will be. So we're going to talk to Joe this morning about his medical condition and what it looked like to choose life, in hopes that maybe it might inspire someone else. So Joe, tell us a little bit about what happened to you.
Well, I basically just woken up one morning and my right arm was non-functional. It was just hanging down by my side. I couldn't move it other than use my left hand to move my arm.
Had you had anything happen before that led you to, like the day before, you felt twinges of you just woke up?
Well, looking back, I can recall some things that occurred that I could have been a warning sign that I didn't really pick up on. I recall eating and my hand was shaking. And I had difficulty opening bottles of water or soda or anything like that with my right hand. So that was kind of a sign, but I didn't really focus on it. And when I woke up and my arm wasn't working, I just figured I slept on it wrong, pinched a nerve, and yada, yada, yada. But anyway, I got ready for work, went to work. In the meantime, my wife, I was married at the time, had called the doctor and they wanted to see me. So I went to the doctor's office, and as soon as they saw me, they assumed I had a stroke and proceeded to treat me for that, and had me taken to the hospital right away. Over the course of being in the hospital, things progressively got worse, but in essence, what they determined was that I got a virus in my spinal cord that paralyzed my arm. And like I said, while I was in the hospital, it progressed a little bit to this left shoulder and into my diaphragm, and it affected my breathing to the point where I ended up on a respirator. That'd
be scary, I would think.
Well, yeah. I mean, they had me on a lot of medications and stuff, so morphine can have some really weird things happen to you.
Yeah, make you not care. Okay, so that was, what year was that?
That was in 1997.
1997. Okay, so how long were you in rehab?
Well, that's hard to say. I know it was over a year. It wasn't full-time, but on and off, going through rehab. And it was all very good because I had to really relearn how to do a lot of things once it was determined that the prognosis wasn't, I wasn't going to get any better.
Right. Did they know that from the beginning, or did they promise?
They assumed it was atypical Guillain-Barré, which typically people recover mostly from that. But mine didn't show any signs of progress other than my diaphragm getting better.
So you were working at MRF at the time?
Yes.
And how long before you went back to work?
Well, I was hospitalized in September, the middle of September. I got out the beginning of November, and a few weeks later, I recall it was around Thanksgiving time that I went back part-time to work at MRF.
And did you know that it wasn't coming back at that time, or they still think?
Not fully.
Not fully, but
not fully, no. There was so many questions that I had when I was in a hospital and talking to people, and nobody could ever give me an answer.
Right.
Never any answers.
Yeah. And so you went back to work, and so now you have no use of your right hand, period.
Right.
Or hand too, right? Your hand is
right. My hand is paralyzed
as well. So you had to relearn how to do everything with your left hand.
Yes.
And how did that impact your work? And
well, I mean, work was very willing to do anything that I needed in order to make me function.
Awesome.
So that was really nice. And as an engineer, you learn to adapt. Right. You do a lot of problem solving as an engineer. So I do a lot of problem solving to this day, because everything. You look at opening a loaf of bread differently than I do, because for you it's very simple.
Right.
For me, it's okay. I can get it open, but then how do I close the bag afterwards and tie that tie or put on that plastic clip? And so those are all things that you have to learn, figure out.
Did you? So I just had my knee replaced, and I realized yesterday I can't kneel on it, and I'm hoping cross-country ski in a couple weeks, and I realized that I might have gotten into the middle of nowhere and had to do something in my boot and have a dead end. Like, okay, how am I going to do? Did you ever run into a dead end anywhere along the way where you're like, okay, I'm stuck, what am I going to do here?
Yeah, I'm sure I have. There's probably more than I can remember, but there isn't any that really stick out.
Okay.
I try very hard not to put myself in that position.
Right, so you're thinking ahead what you can navigate.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember meeting you sometime after that. I remember you being away, and I remember you coming back, and then and there was, from our perspective, there was no difference in what you required from us, what you worked with. So you had to relearn how to write.
Yes.
And what did that look like for relearning things that were normal with now doing it with one hand instead of two?
Well, that like everything, everything's a challenge, and I see a lot of people that are naturally left-handed write much differently than I do. The difficulty is if you've got a single sheet of paper or something, it's hard to write on and hold it with the same hand without it moving around.
Right.
So there are things like that can be challenging, but I try to do everything in a notebook if I'm going to be writing.
Okay.
So it's got a little bit more weight to it, so it's less apt to move around.
Didn't even think about that. That's true. And how about, do you type with one finger or?
No, I use a few fingers. I always did pretty well typing, and that really didn't take too much adjustment. I do struggle because lifting this arm, it looks normal, but it's not. And,
Your good arm?
Yeah.
Okay.
My shoulder is partially paralyzed.
Oh, so I didn't realize that. So it's all the way around to the top of your shoulder.
This one, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Lifting my arm up is difficult. So sometimes, it's hard to reach some of the keys on the keyboard because it's spread out. But, I make it work.
And, so I don't want to talk about today because we'll fast forward to today. But so back then you improvised, you created ways around things. And what prompted me to invite you was your comment about you chose to live. So at what point were you at a crossroad where you had to decide to make this work or just go hide somewhere? What did that look like to you?
Well, really, what happened was because, as I said, nobody could give me any answers. I spent time trying to figure out, is there anything that can be done? What happened, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it can be consuming. And it just got to a point where I says, I can't do this anymore. I got to either move on or don't, So I decided I've been handed lemonades, make lemonade. Lemons, I'm going to make lemonade and just have lemonade.
And was there a moment where that was just a big real painful time where you
it was over a year.
A year of coming to that point.
I had been fully prepared. So it really wasn't, as I recall, that big of a deal. But, it's one of those things. You kind of have to make a decision.
Yeah. So what did that decision, when you made the decision to live, what did you do to just figure things out along the way? And
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, really, things didn't really change except that I wasn't putting any energy into trying to figure out what happened, right? This is what happened to me, and this is how, I'm just going to have to deal with it.
So you accepted it and moved on, and this is the reality. I've got one hand. And so, and you had indicated you had a good support system around you?
Oh, absolutely. My family was always very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Work was always very supportive. I can't say I've ever run into anybody that wasn't.
Right.
I think in general, people are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Their heart's in the right place, and they're willing to help.
Yeah.
One of the, and it's a good and a bad in my position. And, I kind of was taught that in therapy, that it's good to let people help you, but you got to limit it, because if you don't, you're never going to learn and be independent.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, but sometimes when people ask me if I want help, and I say no, it's because I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
I need to learn.
Right. Right.
If I want to be independent,
Biggest struggle I had with my knee replacement recently was, for me anyway, it was humbling to let people help me. Did you sense any of that? Was there any, I don't want help? Feel like it was just weird to me.
Well, yeah, I find it weird because, and even to this day, I'll hear it, and it really catches me off guard, because I've been living with this for so long that I don't realize it's there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when I say, "Do you need a hand with that?" and I'm like, I take a double take and question, why are you asking me that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And was there, do you ever have days where you're just down and think about, crap, woe was me, or are you...
No.
That's awesome.
I really don't.
Awesome.
I mean, things are a struggle, and I've learned to accept it, and it's okay. It's all good. Could be worse.
Yeah. Right.
Can always be worse.
Right.
I learned that too. I could imagine if this was different for me, if I couldn't walk or something.
Right.
That would be hard.
And how about, I noticed I went on a trip prior to my surgery, and I was on crutches prior to my surgery because I could barely walk, and I took advantage of a wheelchair at the airport and stuff like that, and I didn't realize, I had no idea how, even with a wheelchair, how difficult it was getting from point A to point B. Yeah. And did you find things that have things improved over time to make it easier for you to get around or do some of the things you used to do?
No, I can't say it has. No. I mean,
okay.
There are still a lot of things that I can't do, and that's where the support system comes in.
Got
right.
It. Okay.
And I'm okay with it, and they're okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have a picture from the last podcast of you on the top of a mountain, right? Yeah. And I mean, I've climbed, and I know I need both hands to get up some things. So how did that? That's awesome. I mean, how did you figure that out, or what?
Well, I mean, I've been hiking all my life. When I was a kid, my father used to take us, and we'd go as Boy Scouts, and I'd even, when I was able-bodied, I would go hiking with the kids. But then after I became disabled, I kind of took a break from all that, took a break from some things, and it got to a point where I had started watching a TV program called Windows to the Wild, and saw Willem Lang was an older gentleman that was hiking all these mountains in New Hampshire, and I said, I'm going to see if I can do that. And me and my son started hiking again, and figured it out.
You've got a lot of the 4,000 under your belt, right?
Yeah, right now I got 39 done.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's 39 more than me. Although I may have accidentally been on one.
Probably
I don't know.
have.
The cog railway doesn't count, though, does it?
No.
So, but I did stay on Liberty. I think the Greenleaf Hut, whatever one that is, when I was younger.
Lafayette.
Lafayette. Yeah. Oh, you say that like a Frenchman. Lafayette. Okay, yeah. I did stay on that as when I was like 21, which was kind of cool. But I think that's the only 4,000 one I ever climbed. Monadnock isn't a 4,000. No. And I drove up there anyway. So, no. I'm thinking of Wachusett. I drove up to Wachusett. But so you're doing the hiking, and what else? What are there any other things you're doing that are just like wow?
Well, really my only hobbies, I guess, are hiking, and I haven't been doing as much in the last couple of years. But the only other thing I really do as a hobby is brewing beer.
Well, that helps. Yeah. That's right. We were going to talk about that the last. So what's your favorite beer to brew?
Oh, well, I have a few. I'm kind of a pale ale guy. It's not an IPA, but a pale ale.
Okay,
it's
I hate IPAs.
It's a little more older school, if you will.
If we do another podcast, you're going to bring some and we're going to sample it. So that takes... I've brewed wine. You brewed wine? I've made wine, and the equipment, some of it's similar. Did you have to invent anything to do that? Because you got to carry stuff around and.
Yeah, no, it took me. I've been doing it for a long time, and it started out very simple, but it's gotten a little more complicated. But I managed to be able to do it, and oftentimes there are family or friends that'll come and help too. So
awesome. They know they're getting beer if they help, right?
Right.
My friend makes beer. I bought him one of these little $50 Mr. Beers at Christmas one year, and I created a monster. He's like a brewer on steroids. And if you ask him a question, get ready for a 30-minute answer on the hops and all the brewing of that. And he once had a bad batch, and he called it a volcano. Have you ever made a volcano?
No.
Where you open it up and it just kind of shoots up, and if you're lucky, it doesn't hit the ceiling. But the beer, a lot of brewers, and they make good beer. So that's awesome that you were able to do that. So fast forward to today, you're living with it. You almost forget sometimes that it's there.
Yeah, I do. Well,
that's great.
Yeah. Well, it's been a while.
Great.
Yeah.
So if there were, hopefully lots of people watch this. What would you say to somebody who's in a situation right now that could just go and either live their life in front of the TV or some screen versus become a hiker, a brewer, a worker, a productive person inside? What would you say to them right now to encourage them?
I'd say don't be discouraged. I mean, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of technology out there that can help everybody, regardless of your disability, to function and become a functioning person. And I think it's good for you, and it's good for everybody around you to be that way.
It's certainly inspirational to me, and I can't imagine living with that, and no one's immune from it.
Right.
And it's just awesome to see that you've found a way, and it's awesome that your company, MRF, is supportive of you, and that's a great company that would do that. And I'm assuming you're at Oxygon now,
right?
They're supportive. They're a great company.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would be. So
and
awesome.
there's a lot of I guess organizations that are available to people, that they can reach out to get help. And I had to get hooked up with some. My biggest obstacle I had was not being able to drive because of the shoulder not being functional.
Okay, so you drove here. Is there somebody waiting outside for you?
No. I've been fortunate that I could get my vehicle modified so I can
Didn't
drive.
even think of that. Wow.
Yeah, and that's not a easy thing.
No. Is it?
It's pretty complicated, the whole process.
So now you do it with one hand, or that's true because you can't Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't let me drive when I had my shoulder because I couldn't use my other hand.
Yeah, well, first they had to modify the steering so it was easier to turn the wheel because I can't turn a regular steering wheel.
Okay.
And basically they just give you a spinner knob with all these buttons on it so you can run your wipers, your directionals, and things with your fingers on the steering wheel instead of having to.
Right. So you're not texting while you're driving.
Well, I can voice to text.
Okay.
As long as you plug your phone in ahead of time. Or
there ought to be a way to review. Oh, actually, my car does review what I say because sometimes that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah. Yes, you can always review what you said.
What you say. Okay, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. Is there anything else in that scheme where that you're able to do that's just amazing? The technology has let you do it now like that.
Yeah, I guess I can't think of anything.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there are because they're so common now. You just probably use them.
Well, I started out trying a lot of different things, and long story short, when they break and trying to get replacements is not always easy. Right. So you just learn to live with the same tools that everybody else does or uses.
Okay, awesome.
That's great. I had no idea about your arm last time you were here. But
I wear it well.
Yeah.
He does.
A lot of practice.
I've always wanted to try the car controls. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, well, it's not that simple.
No?
Well, at first I was able to buy a spinner knob and put it on your steering wheel.
Oh, I see. Like one of those, like a truck driver, I see.
But in New Hampshire, they're illegal, so so I couldn't get my car inspected. But
live free or die.
I have lots of stories. My first vehicle, they literally took the steering wheel off. This is really cool that I had modified. You can't just get this equipment put in your vehicle without getting an evaluation by someone that's licensed and approved by the state and so forth. So in New Hampshire, they had Crotchet Mountain Rehabilitation Center where you could go for driving evaluations. And the instructor there, or the evaluator, gave me my evaluation and suggested this equipment to put in your car. And I walked away and said, okay. And I asked him, where do I get this stuff? And he recommended, there's a company in Londonderry that can do that. So I said, okay. And I went on and I paid for my evaluation, went to get a quote on getting these parts put in, and I got the price back. And I'm like, $22,000.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. And what they were going to do, or what they did do, was basically they could take my steering wheel off, but they mounted a stepper motor on the steering wheel shaft, the steering column, that I had a little box mounted really easy for me to get at with my left hand with a small wheel on it. So when I turned the wheel, it would turn my steering column. Oh. And it also had buttons to put the vehicle in the different gears, reverse, park, drive, low. And also had some switches to start the car because I couldn't reach over and turn the key because it was on, I don't know if it was on the steering column or on the dash, but it was on. Everything's made for right-handed people.
Right. That's true.
We live in a right-handed world.
True.
So there was switches and everything for that. And then there was a button on the floor that I could push to run my horn, my directionals. You know how they used to have the old dimmer switches on the floor? Mm-hmm. This was just like that.
The high beams and stuff,
but it was multiple function. The longer you held on to it, it would make different tones. And you would stop at the tone you wanted of the function that you wanted. So one day I brought, I think, my brother to the airport. And I dropped him off. And then as I was leaving the airport, you had to go through to pay. And there was a person, and I went to pay to leave the airport. And he looked at me and he says, oh, there's no charge for that. And I says, what are you talking about? He says, well, you're disabled. I says, I don't have a disabled plate, because I never had a disabled plate. He looked at me and he says, you have no steering wheel. And I said, guess so.
Now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had been using it so long that I don't need a disabled plate, so I never got one. So I guess, but I thought that was kind of a cute little story.
Have you thought about? My son has a Tesla and he puts it in autonomous mode, which is pretty scary. Have you thought about that?
Well, my car has this lane. I forget what they call it.
Lane keep assist.
Yeah. And I've literally driven on the highway from exit 23 to almost to Concord.
Oh.
With just that.
Well,
I was just by myself.
But that's keeping you in the lane.
Yeah, but it did a pretty good job. Yeah, it goes around those, lazy corners.
Right.
Pretty well on the highway.
Right. What I don't like about those is if you're going to change lanes and you don't use your blinker, which I should use my blinker, I get it, or if you got to go around somebody, it fights you unless the blinker's on, then it says okay.
Well, that was one thing that concerned me a little bit about that, because I was in traffic in Concord going south one day, and someone was getting on the highway, and it was pushing the car that was in the right lane over into me, and I was in the left lane, and I said, I wonder if this would actually push you back into the car.
Yes, it will. It will. Even with snow, I've noticed, like if the roads are snowing, you got to move over. You can't, unless you put your blinker on, you can't move. My son's Tesla was kind of cool because it started slowing down, and it started slowing down because it saw the car in front of it have its blinker on. It's smart enough to know. It's really crazy, but but yeah. So that's amazing that you can drive, and that I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, there are options. It's really good.
Options, awesome.
Yeah,
options.
I mean that's my point right there. And if you know the right people, there's companies. Or I don't know what you call organizations out there that's what they do.
Right.
Granted, state independent living's a big one that
cool
in New Hampshire, and
very cool.
There's many.
Cool. So, if anyone has a question, send us a question on the email, and we can float it by Joe, and if he could be of assistance to anybody watching this with any resources.
Yeah.
And no, I really thank you. I know, maybe this is easy for you, maybe it's not to talk about this, but really appreciate it because I thought if we can help a few people that might be on that choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important that you don't give up. We're all here for a purpose. We all have a reason, and not just for ourselves, for people around us.
Right.
And even if you're just here to inspire people.
Right. Just what we want to do is inspire people.
Right.
So, well, thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting in the loop with us. We hope this podcast was informative, and if you need any assistance on anything in the thermal process industry, please feel free to reach out to us at 800-848-NETS. That's 800-848-6387. Or visit our website at www.nets-inc.com to fill out a request for information form. If there are any topics regarding thermal processes that you would like to hear on a future podcast, please send us a comment. We hope you have an awesome day every day.